Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 9 Part 27 based on novel. So let's start. The spacious treasure inspection room was well lit. Its quiet atmosphere was completely different from the noisiness outside. Lin Dong sat down in front of a treasure inspection booth. There was a middle-aged man with a professional smile opposite him. The middle-aged man looked at Lin Dong and smilingly inquired, "Mister, do you wish for something to be inspected?" Lin Dong nodded slightly and did not act secretive. With a clench of his hand, a jade bottle appeared in a flash. Emerald green liquid slowly swirled within the jade bottle as a shocking life energy spread from within. This is... The middle-aged man's eyes slightly focused as he looked at the emerald green liquid within the jade bottle. Immediately, some excitement climbed into his eyes, as he softly clarified, "Is this the core spiritual birth serum?" "Yes." Lin Dong nodded. This treasure inspection officer of the Sky Merchant Court did indeed possess a good pair of eyes. The latter had recognized the item before being told what it was. "I wish to hand this item to the Sky Merchant Court to be auctioned." The middle-aged man was not surprised by these words. He pondered for a moment, before speaking. "Sir, please wait for a moment, the core spiritual birth serum is extremely valuable. I will invite the person in charge to help you value it. What do you say?" The man saw Lin Dong nod after those words were uttered, before turning around and entering the inner hall, while Lin Dong remained quietly seated. This continued for a long while, before he heard the sound of soft footsteps. A serene fragrance also began to flow into the closed-off room. "Does this customer intend to auction the core spiritual birth serum?" A soft and gentle voice suddenly sounded. Lin Dong lifted his head only to see that there was a lady standing in front of him. The lady wore a bright red dress. She had a very good figure with enchanting curves, and her face was an exquisite oval shape. At this moment, there was a slight smile on it. This smile caused her chin to look extremely pointed. On the whole, she was fairly beautiful. Currently, the woman in red was using her bright and beautiful black obsidian-like eyes to look at Lin Dong. Such an appearance was filled with allure. Lin Dong was clearly a little stunned by this lady's appearance. However, he quickly recovered and nodded. He glanced at the middle-aged man from earlier behind the red-cloaked lady. He was standing at that spot in an extremely respectful manner. From this, one could tell that this lady's status within the Sky Merchant Court was definitely extraordinary. Moreover, Lin Dong could also faintly sense a relatively strong yuan power fluctuation from the body of this red-clothed lady. Evidently, this lady was also exceptionally powerful. This chaotic demon sea is indeed full of strong hidden individuals. Lin Dong pursed his lips. This red-cloaked lady's age was similar to that little underworld king Xie Yang. However, she was likely not weaker than the latter. "May I know if it is convenient for you to reveal your name?" The red-cloaked woman looked at Lin Dong with a bright smile as she inquired. "Lin Dong." Lin Dong hesitated for a moment, before replying. He did not hide his name. It seemed unnecessary to do so in this chaotic demon sea. "I am a manager of the Sky Merchant Court, Tang Dongling." The red-cloaked lady smilingly replied. She extended her delicate hand to retrieve the jade bottle containing the core spiritual birth serum in front of Lin Dong. Her pretty eyes brightened slightly after sensing the rich life energy within it. After which, she said, "This is indeed the core spiritual birth serum. Moreover, the life chi within it is quite rich. It can be considered a high-grade core spiritual birth serum. If Brother Lin Dong wishes to auction this item, the price can be set at 1 million Shen Yuan pills. This item is greatly beneficial to the experts at the profound life stage. It will likely attract quite a bidding competition. The 5 drops of core spiritual birth serum within this bottle might be able to fetch around 10 million Shen Yuan pills. 10 million Shen Yuan pills. In that case, we will do as Miss Tang has suggested." Lin Dong did not have any objections to this. He might not be considered extremely wealthy with these 10 million Shen Yuan pills. However, it was likely that he would be able to obtain the things he needed if he did not compete against those powerful factions. Originally, Lin Dong had 8 droplets of this core spiritual birth serum. However, he had used 1 droplet at Mysterious Spirit Island, and currently only had 7 droplets left. He had only taken out 5 of them for this auction. The remaining 2 droplets were kept by Lin Dong. After all, this thing was also greatly beneficial to Lin Dong. That's right, Miss Tang, may I inquire if there will be any volcano flame essence stones in the auction? Lin Dong was just about to stand up after settling the matter of the core spiritual birth serum, when he suddenly seemed to have recalled something. He quickly opened his mouth and inquired. Volcano flame essence stones. Tang Dongling was a little taken aback. She immediately pondered for a moment before replying, a rather rare ingredient. However, such an ingredient will be snatched up by the various powerful factions the moment they appeared. Some might appear during this auction, however, they have already been secretly targeted. Lin Dong frowned slightly upon hearing these words. If he was unable to find 8 volcano flame essence stones, he would be unable to refine the burning sky gates. He would really experience some trouble should that nefarious bone old man come looking for him again. After all, he was unable to frequently use that method, which would leave them both severely injured. Does Brother Lin Dong really require this ingredient? Tang Dongling involuntarily laughed after seeing Lin Dong's frown. My sky merchant court does have some volcano flame essence stones. However, they are not up for sale. If Brother Lin Dong requires them, I can make the decision to sell some of them to you. Treat it as a gesture to befriend Brother Lin Dong. Miss. The middle-aged man behind Tang Dongling was about to open his mouth after hearing those words, when he was stopped by a wave of the latter's hand. Lin Dong was also a little surprised as he looked at Tang Dongling. It was likely that he never imagined that she would actually take the initiative to lend him a hand. Although he did not understand the reason for it, he cupped his hands together and spoke respectfully after hesitating for a moment. In that case, I will thank Miss Tang for your help. Lin Dong did not try to put up an act and reject her. This was because he really needed the volcano flame essence stones at the present time. Currently, various experts were gathering at this Sky Merchant region due to the Sky Merchant auction. If Lin Dong wished to be able to defend himself, he must refine the burning sky gates. May I inquire about the price for your volcano flame essence stones? I will likely require 8 pieces. The price of every volcano flame essence stone will not be lower than the core spiritual birth serum. Each is worth about 1 million Xian Yuan pills. 8 of them will cost 8 million Xian Yuan pills. Tang Dongling lifted her sharp chin slightly. Her smile had a fox-like bewitchment and charm. 8 million Xian Yuan pills. Lin Dong felt a little awkward upon hearing this price, and said, I'm sorry. I do not have so many Xian Yuan pills with me now. I think that I will wait until the core spiritual birth serum is sold before I head here to purchase them. It's fine. Brother Lin Dong can take the volcano flame essence stones first. Since your core spiritual birth serum will be left with us, don't tell me that I will still be afraid that you will run. Tang Dongling laughed. After which, she gently waved her hand. The middle-aged man behind her quickly withdrew, before returning a dozen minutes later. There was now a jade box in his hands. An extremely hot fluctuation spread the moment the box was opened. Lin Dong suppressed the excitement within his heart. He looked over, and saw 8 fiery red crystals quietly lying within the jade box. There seemed to be some lava flowing within those crystals, while wave after wave of extremely wild and violent fluctuations continuously rippled from them. It is indeed the volcano flame essence stone. Lin Dong's eyes flashed. He had finally found this thing after much effort. Brother Lin Dong, please accept them. Tang Dongling smilingly said. Lin Dong cupped his hands together towards Tang Dongling in a solemn fashion. After which, he received the jade box and kept it into his Qiankun bag, as he earnestly spoke, I will definitely repay this favor that Miss Tang had bestowed upon me today if I have the chance to do so in the future. Lin Dong was unaware of why Tang Dongling would aid him in such a manner. However, Lin Dong was someone who would repay a favor 10 times over. Regardless of the reason, Lin Dong had accepted Tang Dongling's good intentions. These words of Brother Lin Dong are enough. You can come to the Sky Merchant Court to look for me if you have anything you need help with during this period of time. Tang Dongling covered her mouth and laughed in a lovely fashion. Lin Dong nodded. He once again uttered a couple of polite words, before turning around to leave. Young miss, why have you broken the rules for a stranger? Is there really a need to try and win over this person? The middle-aged man finally could not resist asking after Lin Dong left. Do you know who he is? Tang Dongling's long, narrow and pretty eyes narrowed slightly as she asked. I do not. Some time earlier, that Shintu Ju from the Shintu clan was defeated by someone, and the person who defeated him was called Lin Dong, Tang Dongling softly said. Defeated Shintu Ju he does have some ability. However, I'm afraid that this is insufficient to gain such attention from young Miss Wright. The middle-aged man mused. After that incident, the nefarious Bone Old Man tried to kill this person due to some grudge. However, the nefarious Bone Old Man ended up becoming a human batten, and fled with serious injuries. Oh! That middle-aged man's expression finally altered slightly upon hearing this. The nefarious Bone Old Man was a half-step profound death stage expert. He was quite well known in the Heaven Wind Sea region. Additionally, I have coincidentally obtained some news. Half a year ago, an earth-shaking battle occurred in the Eastern Xian region. In that great battle, the three great sect masters of the Yuan Gate moved together in an attempt to kill a young man. However, the latter was eventually able to successfully escape. It was rumored that a reincarnation stage expert had lent him a hand at the final critical moment. Tang Dongling's red lips pursed slightly, as rich curiosity flickered within those pretty eyes of hers. She looked at the flabbergasted middle-aged man beside her, and gave him a charming smile. That young man was also called Lin Dong. Does young miss mean that the Eastern Xian region's Lin Dong and this person is one and the same? The middle-aged man's face held some shock. If the two of them were the same person, would it not mean that there was a super expert who had stepped into the reincarnation stage supporting Lin Dong? An expert at that level was someone whom their Sky Merchant Court could not afford to offend. Although I am unable to verify this, it is still necessary to maintain a good relationship. I believe that Father will also choose to do the same if he is here. Although the price of 8 volcano flame essence stones is expensive, it might not even be worth mentioning in the long run. Tang Dongling laughed softly. Even if the two of them are not the same person, Lin Dong still possessed the potential to be worth befriending. One should not underestimate Lin Dong's skills given that he was able to force a half-step profound death stage expert to that extent with just the strength of the initial profound life stage. If it is possible to befriend such a person, it will naturally be far better than being enemies with him. Young Miss has really become more and more meticulous. The middle-aged man praised as he nodded. If there was really a reincarnation stage super expert backing Lin Dong, the latter would be treated as a VIP even by the master of their Sky Merchant Court. Tang Dongling grinned. She said, do not leak the matter about Lin Dong. He currently faces a great amount of trouble. Although he has severely injured the nefarious Bone Old Man, we must not forget that the old man is someone from the demonic Wind Cave. Currently, that little underworld King Xie Yang is also present. Lin Dong will face some trouble if the former recognizes him. The middle-aged man nodded, this subordinate understand. Okay, go and continue your work. There are 10 more days before the auction will begin. This time around, quite a number of powerful factions have come. We must ensure that nothing goes wrong. Tang Dongling said. Understood. The middle-aged man replied respectfully. After which, he bade her farewell and left. Tang Dongling leaned her head to the side, as her pretty eyes looked in the direction which Lin Dong had left towards, and the corners of her lips slightly lifted. She was clearly extremely curious about Lin Dong's identity. Lin Dong left the treasure inspection room. After which, he found Mu Lingshan outside, whose eyes were somewhat dazzled as she looked around. He subsequently dragged her along in this Sky Merchant Court district. Lin Dong had gained quite a lot from this trip. After obtaining the 8 volcano flame essence stones, he had finally solved a relatively troublesome problem. With these materials, he would be able to bring out the power of the burning sky cauldron. Although it would not be as great as when the old man Fen Tian wielded it back then, Lin Dong would no longer need to fear anyone that was not a profound death stage expert. Such a powerful trump card was clearly necessary in this chaotic place where all sorts of experts gathered. Lin Dong was in no hurry to find a lodging after leaving the Sky Merchant Court. Instead, he led Mu Lingshan as they strolled about Sky Merchant City for some time. Only then was this little girl's desire to join in the liveliness satisfied. Finally, Lin Dong led her to find an inn within the city to rest. Lin Dong beckoned with his hand within the spacious and quiet room, as the burning sky cauldron rushed out. Wave after wave of scarlet red light was continuously emitted from it. Lingshan, I will be in secluded cultivation for a couple of days. You should stay inside as much as possible. Sky Merchant City is currently extremely chaotic. No one knows if there is anyone from the Blood Demon Shark clan outside. There will likely be a great amount of trouble if you are discovered. Lin Dong warned Mu Lingshan beside him. Mu Lingshan pouted her small mouth after hearing that Lin Dong was planning on retreating into secluded cultivation. However, she eventually nodded. That's right, how is the seal that was placed on you? Lin Dong seemed to have recalled something as he suddenly asked. He could sense that Mu Lingshan should be relatively powerful and was likely even stronger than the little underworld king Xie Yang. However, a seal had been placed on her. If the seal was removed and her strength recovered, she would definitely be a great helper to Lin Dong. It has yet to disappear. That damned shark seal is quite formidable. Mu Lingshan pulled her sleeve. A blood shark light symbol appeared on her small white shoulder. She looked at this light symbol and seemed a little frustrated. How can we remove this seal? Lin Dong frowned and asked. I need a kind of spiritual ingredient called the Sea King Spirit Grass, only with it will I be able to break this seal. Mu Lingshan thought for a moment before replying. Sea King Spirit Grass, Lin Dong muttered under his breath. This was a rare spiritual ingredient. He would have to see if he could find it once the auction began. In any case, he would do his best to help Mu Lingshan resolve the problem of the seal. You should be careful during these few days. The task of guarding us will be left to you. Lin Dong pulled the two pigtails on Mu Lingshan's little head. After which, he laughed heartily in the face of the little girl's displeasure, before his body moved and entered that burning sky cauldron. The interior of the burning sky cauldron was still the same bare yellow land. Lin Dong floated in the sky, as his eyes swept downwards. He grinned and asked, Yang, what should I do next? Back then, old man Fen Tian had already completely harmonized this burning sky cauldron to you. The method to refine the burning sky gate is hidden within the burning sky cauldron. Only you can find it. The ancestor stone shot out from Lin Dong's body. A light figure surfaced from it as Yang looked at Lin Dong and said. Lin Dong nodded in comprehension. He shut both of his eyes and allowed his mind to gradually spread. Finally, it began to gradually merge with this burning sky cauldron. Following this merger, he could clearly sense that the information hidden within the furnace was beginning to gather towards him. Scarlet red light covered Lin Dong's body. This continued for over 10 minutes, before it gradually scattered, and Lin Dong's shut eyes also slowly opened. There was some vague scarlet red light flashing within them. So it's like this. Lin Dong laughed softly. Currently, he had already obtained the training method and operation procedure for the burning sky gate from the burning sky cauldron. From a certain point of view, this was a relatively complicated process. Back then, old man Fen Tian had spent several years in order to refine those 8 burning sky gates. Of course, the current Lin Dong did not dare to compare with old man Fen Tian. That person had used 8 ancient volcanoes to refine the burning sky gates. It could suppress a general-level Yimo after its successful refinement and could even pose a threat to a king-level Yimo. On the other hand, the ingredients that Lin Dong was using were merely 8 volcano flame essence stones. Although these stones contained a relatively great amount of volcanic energy, it was impossible to even compare the two. Fortunately, Lin Dong was not hoping to use this to deal with those Yimo. All he wished to do was to possess a method to deal with the nefarious Bone Old Man the next time the latter come looking for him. Let's get started. Lin Dong exhaled softly. Red light flickered within his eyes, as both of his hands suddenly formed numerous seals. Following the change of these seals, the entire domain suddenly began to tremble intensely. The yellowish ground below collapsed, as many huge scarlet red light pillars shot into the clouds. A wild and violent heat quietly surged within this space. The light pillars interweaved together. Finally, they transformed into an enormous formation. Firelight rose within the formation, and it seemed to have formed a monstrous flame. Lin Dong lifted his head and observed the formation that had formed. With a wave of his sleeve, the jade box flew out from it. Subsequently, the box melted, and 8 red lights shot out. Finally, they hovered in the air. The temperature within the burning sky cauldron soared almost instantly after the appearance of these 8 volcano flame-essence stones. Soon after, a firestorm descended from all directions, an extremely majestic sight. Lin Dong watched this scene. His eyes contained thick shock. Fortunately, he was currently able to borrow the strength of the burning sky cauldron. Otherwise, if he was to simply rely on his own strength to refine the burning sky gates, the amount of time needed to do so would drag on without end. After all, the enormous energy required during the refinement period was not something that his initial profound life stage strength could afford. Lin Dong sat down in the air. His 10 fingers crossed together, before flipping over. A soft cry was suddenly emitted. Burning sky cauldron, refine the sky gates. Bang bang. The large array in the sky trembled. 8 enormous fire pillars suddenly poured downwards. The fire pillars wiggled, and actually transformed into 8 giant fire dragons. After which, the dragons' mouths were opened, and swallowed the 8 volcano flame-essence stones. The titanic bodies of the 8 fire dragon began to curl up after they swallowed the volcano flame-essence stones. They seemed to have vaguely turned into 8 fire cauldrons. Within the cauldrons, the volcano flame-essence stones continuously emitted a berserk and scorching energy. Lin Dong observed all of these. After which, he slowly shut his eyes. He would mostly rely on the burning sky cauldron to refine the burning sky gates. All he needed to do was to control the process from the side. Currently, most of what he could do had already been done. All that was left was to wait for the process to be over. Whether it was a success would completely depend on Lin Dong's own luck. Fierce flames seemingly filled the scarlet-red domain, as a scorching heat was continuously emitted. This made the domain seem as if it was a furnace, and its high temperature was unbearable. Lin Dong was seated in the air. There were no defenses around him. This burning sky cauldron had already completely merged with him. The temperature within it might be fatal to others, but it posed no harm towards Lin Dong. At this moment, both of Lin Dong's eyes were shut. His mind sunk into the burning sky cauldron, and controlled the formation. Although he was unable to intervene in the refinement process, he needed to maintain this formation. Else if the formation was disrupted, the refinement would fail. At that time, the 8 volcano flame-essence stones would be wasted. Bang bang. 8,000 feet large fire cauldrons were suspended within this enormous fire array that covered the entire place. Fire dragons swam around the surface of those fire cauldrons. Occasionally, the dragons would open their mouths, as balls of scarlet-red flames were spat into the cauldron. At the middle of each of those 8 cauldrons were 8 clusters of light. These light were extremely bright, appearing like little suns. As they gave off light, frightening ripples quietly spread from them. It felt as though 8 wild and violent volcanoes were hidden within these light clusters. Additionally, there vaguely seemed to be 8 gates quietly taking shape deep within those light clusters. Lin Dong slowly opened his tightly shut eyes. His eyes revealed an excited expression as he glanced at the wild and violent cluster of light within the cauldron, and a slight smile surfaced on his face. Everything were proceeding according to plan. All that he needed to do was to wait for the moment when everything was naturally completed. Once the burning sky gate was successfully refined, he would be able to completely unleash the might of this burning sky cauldron. Lin Dong had been anticipating the arrival of this day for a very long time. The subsequent period of time was a kind of quiet wait. In the blink of an eye, 8 days had passed. During these 8 days, the domain within the burning sky cauldron grew wilder and more violent with the passing of each day. Fire reigned and raged within the domain. At the end, the fire rain turned into a firestorm that swept throughout the domain within the burning sky cauldron. This activity caused Lin Dong to rejoice slightly. Fortunately, the refinement could be completed within the burning sky cauldron. Should this be done in the outside world, he would definitely end up attracting the attention of countless experts. At that time, many people would also take a peek at the situation. The trouble it would bring would cause Lin Dong a great headache. The fire cauldrons within the large array gradually became unstable as the domain became increasingly wild and violent. Those originally indistinct doors within the light clusters had begun to become clearer. A terrifying fluctuation quietly spread out from within them. In the face of that fluctuation, even the space around the fire cauldrons became slightly distorted. Bang bang! The formation began to tremble intensely following the growing instability of the fire cauldrons. Lin Dong's expression also became a lot more solemn, as he sensed the changes in the formation. Currently, it was already 70 to 80% done. Should he fail at this moment, it was likely that he would end up feeling quite depressed despite his character. Lin Dong's long fingers crossed each other. His hand seals quietly changed at this moment, while his mind continued to suppress the disorder within the large formation. His efforts clearly had some effect. A moment later, the originally fluctuating formation became substantially calmer. However, Lin Dong's mind did not relax as a result. Both of his eyes were searing hot, as he stared at the middle of the cauldrons. Flames were rising at that spot, and the 8 scarlet red gates were partially visible. It is almost time. A searing heat surged out from Lin Dong's pitch-black eyes. Immediately, he bit the tip of his tongue, and 8 mouthfuls of essence blood with concentrated yuan power were spat out. Lin Dong's face immediately turned pale as 8 mouthfuls of essence blood were spat out. However, his mind was extremely excited. With a flick of his finger, the 8 essence blood clusters turned into arrows that shot into the fire cauldrons. Finally, they entered the scarlet red gates that had been formed. After the bright essence blood entered those scarlet red gates, those originally somewhat unstable gates began to shake wildly at this moment. Wave after wave of extremely berserk scarlet red light was emitted. Finally, they smashed onto the fire cauldrons with a loud bang. Lin Dong's eyes were grave. He controlled the formation with all his might. He was aware that this was the most important stage. If he was unable to leave his mark on the burning sky gates, he would be unable to control them. In this way, all of his hard work would be for naught. After all, regardless of how powerful they was, what use would they be if they did not obey his control? I must succeed, Lin Dong muttered to himself. His hand involuntarily tightened, and some perspiration seeped out from his palm. Bang bang! A thunderous roar continued to be emitted from the 8 fire cauldrons. The roar seemed to smash into Lin Dong's heart, causing the corners of his eyes to jump involuntarily. Boom boom! Another wild and violent force suddenly smashed violently onto the fire cauldrons. After which, Lin Dong's pupils shrunk, as he saw cracks appearing on the fire cauldrons. The fire cauldrons were unable to endure the growth of the gates within them. Lin Dong's face was grim. With a thought, scarlet red light swept out from within the formation. After which, it wrapped around the 8 fire cauldrons and continued to stabilize them in an attempt to prevent them from exploding. The fire cauldrons began to swell at a shocking speed under Lin Dong's control. In a short couple of breaths' time, the 8 fire cauldrons had swelled to twice their size. From a distance, they appeared like 8 10,000 feet large fire cauldrons floating in the sky, a scene that was quite stunning. As the cauldrons swelled, the shaking also began to gradually weaken. Fiery red light swiftly gathered within the cauldrons, as the shape of the gates became increasingly clear. Moreover, a faint connection began to rise within Lin Dong's mind as the scarlet red gates became clearer. The source of the connection were the 8 burning sky gates that had yet to be completely formed with the cauldrons. The appearance of this connection caused joy to be revealed in Lin Dong's eyes. He understood that he already had initial success in the completion of this step. Bang! A shocking thunder-like sound suddenly exploded in the sky. The light within the 8 fire cauldrons brightened to the point where one's naked eye was unable to look directly at them. Is it about to be formed? Lin Dong slightly narrowed his eyes, as green light gathered within them. He could clearly see that the 8 scarlet-red gates within the glaring light from the cauldrons were already gradually stabilizing. Bang! 8 glaring intense light rays suddenly shot out from within the fire cauldrons at this moment, as light symbols appeared on them one by one. Finally, they emitted a couple of loud bangs, and the 8 cauldrons actually exploded at the same time. Monstrous flames swept across the sky. Soon after, 8,000 feet long scarlet-red light beams shot out from the flames that seemingly blotted the sky. Finally, they quietly floated before Lin Dong's somewhat excited eyes. Lin Dong's eyes were filled with excitement as he gazed at the sky. 8,000 feet large crimson gates were quietly standing in 8 directions. Scarlet-red flames flowed within these gates, appearing like meandering fire dragons. The 8 scarlet-red gates stood in the horizon, as an invisible fluctuation quietly swept apart, as the originally wild and violent energy within the burning sky cauldron began to quieten down. A cluster of white vapor was slowly exhaled from Lin Dong's mouth. His mouth parted as he looked at the 8 scarlet-red gates, and laughter was involuntarily emitted from his mouth. He was aware that a burning sky cauldron with the burning sky gates was considered complete. From this moment onwards, he would be able to truly unleash the might of the burning sky cauldron. By relying on the 8-level burning sky gates within this burning sky cauldron, Lin Dong had the confidence to fight anyone, as long as they were not those experts who had truly stepped into the profound death stage. Lin Dong observed the 8 burning sky gates. It was a long while later before he finally waved his sleeve. The sky shook, and the 8 scarlet-red gates were gradually hidden. The next time he met an enemy, all he needed was a thought, and these 8 burning sky gates would be able to unleash a frightening power to kill his enemy. I have finally succeeded. Lin Dong grinned as he looked at the 8 burning sky gates that had been hidden. He had finally obtained the reward he desired after putting in such a great amount of effort. This video will end here.